This light is really making me look bald, and I swear I'm not going bald. I might be going gray, but I'm not going bald. Give it like 2 decades, and I'm gonna be completely like gray hair.
You'll be like the Masters athlete that you can tell is a Masters athlete.
I might have a 6-pack, but I will definitely be covered in gray hair.
I feel like the gray hair would suit you though. I feel like it adds to the Ben look.
I feel like I'm just gonna have to embrace it. Like I'm just too lazy to dye my hair. Like I'm just not gonna be that guy.
It'll be like half gray and half black because like you take too long.
Yeah.
Green, like yeah.
You're not gonna have some gray roots. Like no, I'm not. Just better off being entirely.
You're gonna look like Jason Hopper.
Why is he going gray?
When he dyed his hair blonde.
Yeah. I was like,
you'll just look like the opposite of him.
Yeah. All natural.
First of all, am I using the actual name or the fake name?
No, you call her Annie.
All right, Annie here. She's been doing CrossFit for a year. Less experience for most CrossFitters. She's just developing some skills like double unders and working on some GHD sit-ups. So not as developed in her CrossFit lifespan yet. One of the things that I've had to work with her on is basically just working around her schedule. She has children and she works a very demanding job, and her schedule is always very different. So I give her 4 times a week, and it could be literally those days can be the most random days throughout the week. That's one of the roadblocks for programming with her. Her goals right now, GHD sit-up endurance, so working on building capacity and endurance through her GHD sit-ups. I haven't started working with her this yet, but I plan on it within the next week or two of working on some double unders because of I'll go into that in a second. But one of the goals she wants to get to is toes to bar. But we've been putting that on the back burner because she has tendonitis in her shoulders. We believe it's tendonitis, and it bothers her with any like arch position, like pulling on a rope. That stuff bothers her. So I put that on the back burner, and that's why I've also been putting the double unders on the back burner because of the shoulder pain. But we've been working through that recently, and I think that should be almost gone here soon. So the goals are toes to bar, like I said, back on the back burner, GHD sit-up endurance, and double unders. I think that's all that I need to give information-wise.
Yeah, well, that's the information I had. So that's what we're gonna go with.
Yeah.
So yeah, for somebody like this, I do this sort of thing quite a bit for people at the gym. So I write our gym's programming, and obviously I have it in advance where it makes it easy, where then I can just look at what we have and basically take the person's like a list of needs for the person and just make sure that they're showing up every week, and how they actually show up will vary based on what the classes are. So for example, if there was a bunch of toe to bars in class, it sounds like maybe she's not doing those right now. But for example, if she was doing them, or for example, like let's say it's GHD, she did a bunch of GHDs in class, we're obviously not going to need to touch on that. Maybe one other point in the week that's like far away, or maybe not at all. So you just kind of look at really simply like what movements come up, and then you don't really need to work on that as much on individual design or need to work on it immediately around that. More or less, I'm looking at almost like what comes up in classes. So this is CrossFit Revival programming. Justin Shart writes this. So I'm not writing the B portion of this. I'm just writing the individual design. So real quick, maybe it's most helpful if I go over what was sort of handed to me first from your dad as like the gym's programming, and then what I pieced around that. So Monday was build to a heavy single of squat snatch. We got 20 minutes to do that. And then it's 4 rounds for total reps of 1 minute at max reps of a squat snatch and 70% of their heavy single, and then resting 2 minutes between. So that was Monday. Her next day that she can train is Wednesday, and then Thursday and Friday. So 1 on, 1 off, 3 on, 2 off. As you said, it's a very interesting schedule, but it's what we got to work with. The class for Wednesday is 3 rounds each for time, 4 shuttle sandbag carry for her 100 pounds, 8 shuttle runs, 4 sandbag carries, and then rest 4 minutes between rounds. Thursday, class is 5x5 back squat with an easy bike in between. And finally, Friday, 16-minute AMRAP, 45 double unders, 9 chest to bar, 12 power cleans. Rest 1 minute. So, not that you asked for commentary on this, but your dad's programming style is very much like, .com style programming, where it's like, single modality, like just snatching, just back squatting, short metcon, and that's what you get for the day, and like hit it well.
Yeah. There is definitely some different stuff in there. Like on Tuesdays, it's obviously going to be something different, and Saturdays is kind of like the partner big long metcon day. Yeah. But I think off the top of my head, Tuesdays is more like the gymnastic upper body pull, inverted pressing, endurance, stuff like that. To fill in the blanks there, because obviously, like I said, her week schedule's different, so that would be her other weeks would be something on a Tuesday, and a Saturday would be in the next week. So I figured I'd fill in that gap for programming for the future necessarily.
So one of the things that, like, for somebody like Annie, I would say that likely when they tell you their goals, it's like, these are some of the goals that I'd like to get in CrossFit, but really what I want is to like be able to do a lot of the class workouts as prescribed. And often, like, even if they don't directly say that, you could either tease that out, or like you could ask them about, like, well, for example, if you got your toe to bars and they're feeling better, like, what else do you want to work on? They're like, well, actually I want to work on some handstand push-ups, or actually I want to be able to cycle this barbell a little bit better in the workouts. And it's like a lot of it comes back to just like feeling proficient in the class environment. So for me, when I hear people say things like, I want to get the skills, it's like, well, why do you want to get the skills? It's not necessarily because you want to go out on the competition floor. It's because you want to feel like you're competent in a class and, like, checking off some of these things. So my point being, like, I took some liberties in the program to like add some things in that were like either supplementary, that are going to be like just help you feel good when you're actually doing the class workouts, that are only going to like, help your longevity as a class goer, combined with like, here are some things that, like, even though it's not specifically, GHD endurance or double under skill, there's other things that you still want to work on as a CrossFitter that are still relevant to your overall training. So even though you didn't necessarily specifically say that as her goals, I kind of assumed that based on some of her other background stuff.
Yeah, most likely if you're in this isn't necessarily the case for everyone, but if you're doing a CrossFit class, basically your goal is trying to be the fittest version of yourself, and that just basically feeling good in your 1 hour that you get in the day is what most people are looking for.
Yeah, coming through the lens of like, this is a person that's in the CrossFit class environment. Whereas like someone could say that for 60-year-old could say that for going for a hike, right? Like,
yeah,
the majority of people in the world are not using their barometer as handstand push-ups and double unders, which it's cool that, like, chosen to do that. Anyway, you're here to hear about her program. So Monday was the day with all the snatches, squat snatches. This was the day I put some of her like priority work in for individual design. So both both double under practice and toe to bar, what I would call pieces. So like elements of the toe to bar that are going to allow her to learn the skill better, or only going to assist in her learning the movement, like developing the movement, but aren't actually doing the movement. So it's like more so like accessory supportive work for the toe to bar. I do the same thing with like weightlifting for like people who are higher level. It might be like, snatch pieces, and it's them doing snatch balances and snatch pulls and, other turnover drills or whatever. And it's like, they're doing things that are supportive to the snatch, even if it's not like directly snatching. And most of the time, ideally, that's something that is paired with the actual movement. So like an ideal practice would be like, okay, you did some toe to bar. Once they're somewhat fatigued, or we've hit the volume we want to hit, or we've done the practice of half or 3/4 reps that we want to get to, then we add in some of the supplemental work. Because her shoulder's a little pissed off right now, we're skipping the actual practice, and we're just doing the accessories that are going to help her to build some tolerance when she actually puts it back in. So 3 minutes easy on a biker. Then we got speed steps, which is like a running single under, and pogo hops. Pogo hops are great because they're just getting you warmed up, but ideally this is something where you're jumping at least to the height that you need to complete your double unders. Speed steps, you got 30 reps, pogo hops 20, going back and forth that 2 rounds. Then you got penguin hops, which is jumping up, slapping your thighs twice in quick succession, basically mimicking, like it should sound like it would if you're doing a double under. Like the rope, you'll hear the rope hum when you're doing double unders, like and basically you're doing the same thing where you slap your hands to your thighs, like, and it should sound like that in quick doubles. So you're making sure that the timing's right. So jump, double tap, jump, double tap. So 15 reps of that, and then a double down drill. And that's literally you're holding the jump rope handles and you're pressing your thumbs down in that same sort of sequence. You're trying to mimic that sound in your head that you just used for the penguin hops. So basically all that sort of like priming skill work and like getting the calves nice and warm and Achilles warm so that you can actually do the total bar practice well. And then she's got that double under practice combined with the total bar pieces. So 15-minute rotating EMOM. Minute 1 is 25 seconds worth of double under attempts. So that includes tripping. If she trips in there, that counts into the 25 seconds. You got a 25-second window to get as many double unders in as you can. Minute 2 is 10 to 12 of a banded lat row. So basically like a straight arm lat pull down, but with a elastic band and a PVC. So again, working on like that straight arm press down lat strength that's necessary, but that will both serve sort of like a rehab purpose for the shoulder, because basically, strengthening the lat and posterior shoulder is only going to be conducive to any sort of like bicep tendonitis, rotator cuff irritation you got going on. And then the third minute is 12 to 15 of a seated L-sit raise, just working on that core compression, again, in a way that's not going to irritate the shoulder. And then Turkish get-ups, this is sort of like, again, twofold, where like obviously like rotator cuff is going to be working really hard to stabilize in that open chain environment. 3 sets of 2 here. So 2 Turkish get-ups on each side, 3 total sets, building in RPE, starting quite moderate. So 5, 6, and 7 by set for RPE. Basically, it's like, this is additional prep to, again, not only warm up the shoulder further and make sure it's like firing correctly, like the cuff, but then also to like get the shoulder going through a full range of motion before she goes to snatch in class. I really like warming up people for snatches with Turkish get-ups for the most part, because it really demands a lot of the shoulder, but in like a good way.
Yeah, I've never even thought of that before, but I would definitely be using that. I like that.
I have a warm-up that I wrote for Sam that I've since given to several people, but it was like 8 minutes of Turkish get-ups, but then every 2 minutes you do like 20 air squats. You just vary your stance every time, and it's like you're nice and sweaty by the end of that. Your hips and knees and everything are warm, and like your shoulders are like rocking and ready to go.
I was gonna say 8 minutes of Turkish get-ups. Holy heck!
I also regularly just give people like 5-minute AMRAPs of those. Like, here's your 5-minute AMRAP. First 2.5 minutes is like light to moderate. Second 2.5 is moderate. Again, you're nice and warm after that.
You'll get warm, that's for sure.
You lay on your back for about 30 seconds after that, and you're like, all right, I'm ready to snatch. All right, so Tuesday rest day. Wednesday is her next day in the gym. So again, the class workout is sandbag carries. Likely that will be a shoulder carry because they're allowed to carry it however they want, and shuttle runs. Her work before that, 5 minutes on the air bike at an easy pace. Every minute, 5 black burns. So the black burn, you're just laying on your stomach and kind of moving through like a straight arm shoulder car. Yeah, basically like a snow angel with your face down, trying to keep the shoulders away from the ground or the hands away from the ground, and that's just warming up the posterior shoulder. And then she's going into some shoulder health. One is an isometric external rotation with like a hip circle or a mini band. So basically elbows glued to the sides. You're thinking about pulling your hands apart from one another, but you're in an isometric position, so you're not actually moving, creating some tension there. 2 sets, 20 seconds each. And basically a lot of this is like pretty quick. So you're doing only 2 sets of each of these exercises. So you should be able to just kind of chip them off one at a time and move through pretty pretty quick. Obviously, like total work rate is super low because you're just doing isolated stuff to the shoulder, so you're not going to need a ton of rest time. B, banded chicken wing. So basically, take your hand, you put it behind like your back, like on the small of your back. You got a band pulling on your elbow, pulling your elbow forward. You let the band kind of pull you into that inter-rotation position, and then you're pulling your elbow back. So it's activating the lat, but in a very different way than something like we did on Monday. You're kind of teaching the athlete to control the scap in a way when the shoulder's in that internally rotated position, which is going to be super important for things like snatches. She's going to actually only do one set on the non-affected side and 2 sets on the affected side. So like we're affected shoulder, non-affected shoulder, affected shoulder, and then right on to banded face pulls next. 10 to 12 in a set, only 2 sets, 2-second return. Again, just showing control there, making sure that, again, really thinking about anchoring the scaps, pulling them towards the spine on each rep. And then a dumbbell pullover. Basically, I really like these as done as like an accessory lat exercise, but also tying in the core. So I like people to do them where they have their feet up, basically like laying on a bench the long way, feet up, where they're staying in like a posterior pelvic tilt, slightly hollow body type position, and then keeping the elbows completely locked out as they do their pullovers, which is way harder than if you lay sideways on the bench like a gym bro and like heave it over with like slightly bent elbows. Like I can do like 80 pounds that way. Like this other way I can get away with like
everyone
15.
can PR it.
Yeah. It's that's a good example of that. It's like a bent row. I can bent row like 315, or I can do it with like 185, and it doesn't like I could max out either way.
That's where the people that don't do CrossFit, they're like, you do kip and pull-ups. You kip on your pull-ups, and then they won't even like go all the way down.
They stay in the bent elbow the whole way. Yeah. Cool. So that's the shoulder help. This is super exciting, I know. And then we got her sport movement practice, which is hopefully more exciting. So basically it's a rotating EMOM, 20 seconds of work each minute. So very low total fatigue, assuming that she's going to hit the class workout hard and get sort of like her high intensity work there. This is really just like accumulating good reps. 20 seconds of GHD sit-ups. If that was something where that position irritated her shoulder from like the layback, I would either just have her do it to a riser so she doesn't have to go quite as far overhead with her hands, or you could just do them like to parallel with her arms crossed, and that would be fine.
That's what I've been doing with her GHD sit-ups to parallel. That works pretty well.
Yeah. I like doing that for people who aren't competitors. Like, I know Day loves moving her spine that way, but
Yes.
a lot of people do not. So minute 1, 20 seconds of GHDs. Minute 2, 20 seconds of wall balls, standard height and weight. 3, 20 seconds of box jump step downs to 20 inches. And then finally the fourth one, 20 seconds of a dual dumbbell power clean with 30 at hand. Assuming you said she's fairly strong, I'm sure she can move 35s pretty well, but 20 seconds for dual dumbbell power cleans will get kind of spicy. And I want it to be quality focused. So brought it down to 30.
I like it.
Thursday. Again, this workout's the 5 back squat. Starting off, 3 rounds, 1 minute ski at an easy pace, 10 breath, high plank hold. That's where you just go to get it done really fast and then you move on. Could you imagine this was 3 rounds of time and you had to breathe like that? You're just breathing like a dog.
Breathing like my dog.
1 minute ski, 10 breath, high plank hold, 8 scat pulls with a 1 second pause at the bottom of each one, and 6 dumbbell bent rows, RPE 5, 6, 7 by round. So basically building the weight each time. B1, we got strict pull-ups, 4 sets of AMRAP -2. In other words, we're looking for roughly 2 reps in reserve, and I want her using a band assistance that allows her to get into her target rep range, which is like 6 to 9 reps. So kind of like 2 caveats on that. One is like, I'm looking for hopefully 6 to 9, but I want it to be roughly like 2 reps in reserve or like 2 reps in the tank of each set. So giving her quite a number of descriptions there, but hopefully like that kind of context allows her to actually like hit the stimulus I'm looking for. And then she's supersetting that with a tuck hold on the parallettes of 20 to 30 seconds. Again, that's a couple things. One is like the straight arm pressing lockout strength of the tuck hold. The other part of that is actually like the hip flexion requirements for, again, things like GHD sit-ups or toe to bar. Since we did like the GHDs the day before, that was obviously a full typical range of motion GHD. This is an isometric just to kind of contrast what she got the day before. And then C, 4 rounds at high quality, low fatigue, 25-foot kettlebell overhead carry with her first arm, 25-foot overhead carry on her second arm, and then a 25-foot yoke carry, empty or unloaded yoke. So again, kind of two things. One, the shoulder health, stability work there. And obviously like the core requirements of something like a yoke carry, but then also like assuming that is going to be almost like priming work for the class, provided it's not too far away, right? If she gets in here, an hour beforehand, this might be too far away where it's like just almost like fatiguing, where like she does it and then she's got like 30 minutes till class, she calms down. It's like just made her a little bit tired before class. Whereas like if she can use this as like a ramp up and then sort of stay up on that high before class, provided that the warm up doesn't bring her too far off of that, it could be a good thing. So part of this depends on timing. And then finally, a little bit of easy biking, since she's also going to do that in between the squats. I want her to probably do that at a similar pace that she would do that. So just easy biking until class starts. Cap 15 minutes there. Hopefully she gets 5 to 10. Friday. Again, the workout is 16-minute AMRAP, 45 double unders. So we'll assume that she's going to scale that to the single unders. 9 chest to bar pull-ups. Again, she'll probably have to modify that, which is fine. And 12 power cleans.
I haven't even looked at I don't remember off the top of my head what the scaling option was for that, but I'm pretty sure she's pretty decent with crossovers, and that's pretty common scaling option. So crossover single unders for the gym. So I'm off the top of my head, I'm guessing she would probably do crossover single unders there.
Nice. That's good. Sweet. So her ID work, I put in a little note here for today's workout performed. Oh, so I actually forgot I did this. So I put in a little note, and I'll do this again. I do this all the time for people that I coach individual design who are also doing classes here. Is sometimes I'll like modify class. For example, if I was wanting her to do crossovers, I'd like put crossovers in all caps, and that way, like they just kind of know that like anything that's all caps that was typically written in a class format is something that is different from the class workout that's prescribed. So for her, I wrote for today's workout, perform double unders, but cap yourself to 2 minutes of practice each round. AKA, if you start round 2 at 316, move to chest bars at 45 double unders or 516, whichever comes first. And again, that was something where like, there was, if it was like, for example, like chest to bars, I would probably just like prescribe the number of chest bars I actually want her to do based on her ability. Whereas like double unders, because they're so variable day to day, it's like do either the prescribed amount if you get there done in time, or move on after 2 minutes, because like I still want you to get a workout.
Yeah, you're just sitting there trying to do 45 double unders for
you don't want to do that the full
workout.
Yeah, exactly. You don't want it to completely like derail your workout. So it also just like requires a little bit of like athlete maturity to be able to do that. There's some people who would get super frustrated and not feel like they're not able to race in that environment, which you're not able to because you're doing a skill in the workout. But for the people who are mature enough to understand that, like, okay, this could be something I can leverage to get some practice in, but still get my workout in during that. As long as they understand that, they're usually good. Okay, the actual individual design work here, 3 rounds at warm-up pace, 1 minute echo at cruise, 10 banded face pulls, 2-second return, just getting a second touch on that in the week, 1 minute rowing at cruise pace, 10 banded lat rows with a 2-second return. Oh, way to go, typo. There we go. So again, echo, face pulls, row, lat rows. Just getting the shoulders warmed up and core temp elevated. And then we have a superset, B1, half kneeling landmine strict press. The good thing about a landmine press is that it's taking you're still doing a vertical press of sorts, but it's not using that end range that you would be required if you're using like a dumbbell strict press or a barbell strict press, where you kind of have to get to that deep end range of the shoulder. So if that position's a little bit irritated, we still want to go overhead. Landmines are a great option to do that. So looking for an RPE 7 to 8 moderately heavy working sets. So that was B1. B2 is a supinated inverted row with the bar in the rack. So it's kind of a ring row variation, but slightly harder. And I want her to do that palms up. In other words, supinated, and basically trying to do it where she holds her chest to the bar for just 1 second at the top of each rep, and then lowering control back down. So really trying to get that shoulder blade retraction. Again, anytime you're adding in some pressing, especially if you're dealing with some shoulder irritation, it's a good idea to add in some additional horizontal pulling work. 3 rounds, 20-second lat stretch using the rig. So basically just trying to stretch out QL, lat, the whole side of the body there. And then 5 Zercher squats. Actually, that's supposed to be good mornings. I must have been actually I was super tired when I wrote this. I was like, I can't think for another athletes to sign. I'll do this for this podcast because it doesn't matter. So that should be a Zercher good morning. And the good thing about that is that you can really exaggerate the range of motion. And it's a little bit easier because like the weight isn't so far above, like, if you do a good morning, it's like all the way up on your neck, versus like the Zercher, it's a little easier to keep it a little bit closer to your center of mass, which makes it a little bit easier. So I just want her going as low as she can while maintaining a quote unquote back neutral spine. And then for her, this is where I'm adding a little bit of additional strength work, again, assuming that she wants to get well-rounded CrossFit development, versus just like, again, the things that you said that she was actually wanting to work on. So every 2 minutes for 6 sets, 3 deadlifts, starting lighter and form focused, and building to a tough triple with minimal or no deviation in form.
Actually, I think this looks looks pretty similar to what I would do for her. First of all, I normally program her stuff after class just because of like what she has going on and stuff like that. But most of that stuff is pretty similar to what I do. I've been slowly ramping her up since we've probably been a month to a month and a half now of working with her. I've slowly, because of never doing stuff after class, really not knowing what to do, I've slowly started ramping her up. So it wouldn't look as much as that necessarily, but I hope and plan in the future that it would eventually look like that in the next like month to 2 month mark.
Yeah, that's the thing, is like, for me, I try to balance, like, when someone starts with individual design, once they've been doing class, it's like a part of me is like, you're paying me to do this. I want you to I want to write a design for you. Like, I don't want to just give you like, all right, here's 15 minutes on the bike before class, right? But also, like, there's a good part of it that's like, okay, really, like that's probably what you can handle in addition to what you're doing right now when you're starting off. So like, that's kind of the rub as a coach, is like, you're paying me to do this, and like, I know it's good for you long term, and like, part of this deal is that you're paying me for my expertise, not just like you're paying me to like, beat you down. But sometimes CrossFitters, like any athlete, is a bit of an addict, and you need to give them a little bit of what they want and a little bit of what they need. So it's like trying to find that balance of like, I'm going to make sure like I'm demonstrating my worth to you, but then also like I'm going to give you what you need, and like we'll slowly build up to like what's an appropriate volume that you could actually handle. So
yeah, that was probably my biggest like nervous point of starting her with her is just making sure she doesn't get burnt out right away, because of going from just an hour a day to, it could be like an hour after class, or it could be 30 minutes after class. It's that little bit doesn't sound like a whole bunch, but when you just first start doing it and you just get thrown at you right away, it could be a lot for some people. And that was one of the things I made sure I didn't do with her at first. I made it like pretty easy, and then I slowly started adding stuff in.
yeah, which like, so like the alternative was like, I'm sure there's coaches who do this, right? They've been hired by somebody who's like, okay, I've been doing class. I want to get better at CrossFit. They're like, all right, here's the Metcon before that you do. And then you're going to do class, right? And it's like, it now turned into like literally 200% of the volume that they were doing. It's like, they better be like 13 years old. Otherwise, they're not going to be able to handle it.
You got to be me. You got to be me.
Yeah, for real.
Yeah, yeah.
Cool. Got anything else to add? Or we good?
No, that
Well
felt
done.
it helped me out a little bit. Helped me out. Gave me some ideas for her and hopefully for people in the future.
Yeah, I think honestly, like these are some of the designs I most enjoyed writing because it's like it's kind of fun getting like sometimes like if I'm honest, like the competitors, like their designs are so complicated, especially like the higher level people, that it's like I am just like trying to process so much information every single week when I'm writing their designs, and like there's so many things to balance that's like becomes daunting at times, if I'm honest. Because like I want to do a good job and there's just a lot of moving pieces. Where it's like even in a class environment where things are, if you have like more traditional CrossFit programming where like things are just like shifting all the time, and it's like it's not like, you know, Monday we're doing this back squat progression and there's conditioning with these 3 movements and they're very similar every single week, right? Unless you're like that kind of a gym, then it's like you're just kind of meshing like, okay, this is what I see in this week. This is where this person like told me what their goals are. And I'm just going to make sure that like some of this stuff filters in every week. And then it's like, not only am I trying to balance like what they're doing, but then I'm also like looking at class and making sure that like, okay, if they had these things here, how do we make like somewhat of a progression that actually makes sense from previous weeks to this week, but without in a way that is like, it can't be so chaotic that they're not actually like getting those adaptations that they would if it was just like a boring linear program. But because the program itself is shifting, like the main pieces in the class program is always shifting, the way you have to do it is constantly shifting too. So it's kind of this like fun balancing act, and because there's not like so many moving pieces, it's a little bit like more manageable from a coach's standpoint.
Yeah,
The
100%.
rant that nobody asked for, but I gave anyway.
The rants
All right,
that the people didn't ask for.
we should just have some time when we have like different topics, so we should just rant on them.
Yeah,
Oh, man.
That was how this podcast kind of started in the first place.